Alright, so it's day 2, it's about 6:45 AM and we're just about to head off to the second day. Hope to have a good session and I'm sure it's going to be a good one. Come along. So it's day 2 of the program and we're here doing the second session again, and it's the school session where we meet as a school and we basically are talking about some of the issues to do with the strategic implementation of PBL. So at the moment we're doing this day 2 warm-up activity where we're actually having a look at New Tech School's learning management system, and we're going to a school workshop course to find and open a journal activity for today.
Schools have already kind of adopted a set of school-wide learning outcomes and definitions. So we got about maybe a quarter of you. Good, so you have a good head start. I recommend that you never go over 5. I mean, you never even do 5. That 4 or 3 is about as many columns as you want. Content or whatever else, you're taking these broader goals that the church has, identified, and you're taking these, and you're creating a unified set that pulls it all together. So it's just one set of these school-wide learning outcomes that your staff is committed to getting done. So don't think of it as having to just keep layering more and more on. That you have to integrate it all so it makes sense. This is
we have 3 main school goals. Expecting what we need to do is make them more explicit. So for instance, one of ours is about having authentic learning experiences that will improve literacy and numeracy. Would that be?
So that sounds like a goal for teachers. To translate that into an outcome, it's written communication, which is what assuming by literacy, and numeracy. So those are 2 outcomes. You want your students to be literate and to have numeracy skills. Self-determined inquiry? I'll have to look at what it was.
So is that the definition of innovation?
It was kind of this idea that a student could, if you gave them a scenario, the student could derive and summarize the core question of the or challenge or problem, to create an investigative path of inquiry that would result in doing some next steps around. And you can do the same kind of thing with evaluation. They can write papers or do presentations that evaluate something, which is a critical thinking skill on Bloom's taxonomy. The ability to take a bunch of information and come up with a judgment about something, an assessment, and put that into a presentation, put it into a paper, or whatever else. So when all you're doing is testing content, you get the multiple choice test. When you realize you have to teach these other skills, because very few people for a job will take multiple choice tests, it forces you to change the way you teach. If you say that collaboration is important, you have to give them opportunities to practice collaboration, and they have to be doing their work in teams.
We've actually got to go their own supplementary text, so they've got to be able to link to the theme, to the content we're doing, and they've got to actually go and find that themselves. So that
fits.
Be one.
Yeah.
And that's about being able to pick good supplementary text that go with what you're working on.
And that's kind of about it's a compromise between work that's been specified by the teacher or the board of studies or whatever, and some degree of choice by the student, and it's about
And we keep moving that back further down to the juniors, so that we can train them to do that. So
that's how we do our work when we work with a school that's going through these transformations. We start with the youngest students that you have, and we grow the program up. So rather than trying to throw this on the seniors in their last year and hope that they know how to do it, they struggle.
Well, see, but what happened to us was we had that imposed on us by our board of studies, which mandates the outcomes and programs. And so then, because we realised exactly what you just said, we've shifted it further back down so that they get at least the training. By the time they get to seniors, they then know what it's all about.
Right.
Can I ask a question? What role does the media play in the new tech version of PBL and all that stuff you're talking about, finding a pathway, going to news articles, critical literacy, thinking about issues in the media? What's your sort of take on that?
Certainly it depends how you define media, but when kids are doing their research, because we're a one-to-one environment, they do almost all their research online. very seldom do you. Sometimes we'll do a little field trip and go down to the local library, but our local high school libraries cannot have the kind of resources that are required to do these projects. They just can't keep up with them. The cost is prohibitive. There's no way you can keep up with the web nowadays for information. So for the most part, they're gathering their sources off of newspaper websites, Wikipedia, websites specifically devoted to that topic. And they have to learn, this is an important one, is for years and years and years we've taught them that if you read it in a book, it's truth. Because we handed you the book that is the gospel. Here's the truth. It's the history book in the Bible. There you go. These are what you need to get through life. And when you read stuff on the web, that is not the case at all. There is bias, there is lack of filtering, there is no one judging this stuff. And so, even though there's a lot of bias in a history book that we just live along with, it becomes culturally normed.
But there can be inaccuracies too.
They do, and what they say is when they do studies, Wikipedia is about as accurate as encyclopedias are and history books are, because you get more diverse, viewpoints and all that.
And you've also got that critical authorship of many hundreds of people who are vetting each other and spotting inaccuracies as soon as they happen virtually.
I don't know if you probably didn't hear about this story in the United States, but one of our politicians, Sarah Palin, is in the news a lot. So she has gone on this tour of all the famous American history sites. Maybe you saw that.
Is that on her motorbike?
No, she's in a bus. Big bus.
I saw her on a bike.
I saw her on this bus.
And so she went. One of the school-wide learning rubrics that many schools adopt is called media literacy, which is specifically this skill.
Yeah,
the ability to find resources, the ability to discern solid resources and not. So some adopt it as just a class, maybe it's social studies that adopts it as theirs, but some schools say no, this is something that every teacher needs to incorporate into their classroom.
And do you know what I was going to say? It's one of the things, because we were in a girls' school, there was a lot of interest in Hollywood gossip type things, and so the magazines play very loose with the truth, and I love the comments like a source close to,
Right.
It's those sort of things, and then they quote it as some sort of fact. In fact, they did. I saw one on we have a program called Media Watch, which attacks the media basically, but nicely, deconstructs it. And I saw one the other day where it said that J.K. Rowling, who wrote Harry Potter, that she had bought this mansion down in Tasmania, which is the island down the bottom of Australia. But they actually interviewed people, no one knew about it, right? This was just some little rumour, and it became a whole magazine article. Then they showed how it moved on. It made the news on one news channel, and it just kept bouncing on from nothing.
Right.
From nothing. Now, if that was a significant thing, you would worry that a lot of people are believing, because this is how fear and prejudice grows, and that's what worries me.
And you can put any random fact out there, and when it's on the web, it becomes the truth because people they're still in that mindset of what I read is true. And it even happens on CNN, where you can see them speaking. They'll say, Representative Boehner said this. Well, he might have said it, but is it true? Just because they go out and report what people say, but I need to know if what they said was true.
And in the context as well.
Right, and reporters have stopped going out to verify the truth or the validity of statements that are being said, and they just report anything that anyone says, and they want to make that headline so that people tune in to watch the news. So the more, so some wacko says that we found aliens. That doesn't mean we actually have, but they report it as if it's a fact when it's actually just a statement.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's lunchtime of day 2, and we're basically just going to have a nice photo taken over this way. So nice to be wearing my t-shirt, which is basically one of the things that they gave us, and it's kind of cool, and we're just going to have a photo. So this is kind of a bit of a day-by-day idea for different things you can do on each day, and yesterday was School Spirit Day, which is why I was wearing my Carolyn Chisholm College jersey. Today is New Tech Networking Day, so we're all wearing our New Tech t-shirts that we were given as part of the pack, and I guess it's kind of getting us into the culture of the place and getting us to connect with one another. Some good talking points there when you talk about like the school jerseys and where you're from and stuff, and simple things like that just go a really long way. I'm actually really looking forward to this day, the Student Voice Day on Thursday, where it looks like students are going to be sharing some of their work, and I'm not sure whether that's going to be done live or sort of over the social media, but it's going to be really interesting to see some really good quality student work, and I'll certainly be filming a lot of that.
So the elementary school's let out at 2. By the time they get on all these buses,
So we're just about to start our third session, which is all about PBL tools and training, and one of the strategies we tried in this session yesterday was the PBL graphic jam, and basically our instructions were to kind of visually represent PBL in some way, and then to explain it to the whole group, and it's really kind of cool to see everybody's versions of PBL. So in these sessions, what we've been doing a lot of is to put up posters around the room, and these are basically, I guess you could say, the main components of PBL. Like here we've got the NTKs, those are the need to knows. And so over here what we do is we've timetabled the week as a whole, and we're looking at developing the project, and we've sort of chunked it into stages. So this is what the PBL folks call norms, and here we're looking at the things that we kind of take as part of the culture of PBL, and then sort of work into the project, and we state these right at the outset because they sort of define how the groups are going to work. So these are our norms.
General principles and practices. So this was the list that, as I went through your notes from yesterday, that I generated. Is there anything on there, or are there questions out there that you feel like you have that aren't on that list, with the idea that they might be questions we do in a workshop, or that we just make sure to address?
I used YouTube, both things off YouTube to use. We've used a skit before to start. So I don't want, when we do our contract process, I don't want to tell the kids this is due this day, this is due this day, this is due this day necessarily. I want them to write their own benchmarks. And this is when it's due, or you should have this done by this day or something. So I give suggestions and things of that nature. Now there are certain things that you have to have due on certain dates, certain skills, let them have some freedom.
So what we've just organised now is a little meeting where we're going to talk about a rubric for good projects, and just got a bunch of teachers from different places, including myself and Michelle, and we're going to talk it through with Drew, each of our projects, and so we're going to listen to projects from other teachers and hear what they're doing in their schools, and sort of evaluate at this stage whether we think those are good project ideas and whether we should sort of take them further, or what we need to do to them to make them even better.
So is that too unauthentic to be, do you know what I'm saying?
That's actually really difficult because you focus so much on the standards, and you know that you have to actually cover those standards. So my topic, I was looking at the restless Earth. Now obviously, with the Earth movements in Japan and New Zealand at the moment, I wanted to link all that in. But where it says to be exemplary there, that the students will need to present and defend solutions to a real world and appropriate audience, they were actually going to write a newspaper report. But I didn't get to the next step about publishing that until we had this conversation now. So now I'm thinking that perhaps I could even put out a science newsletter on our Moodle site, which the kids the whole school could access, and which could be shared amongst the whole school community.
It gives it that real world audience,
yes,
for a real reason.
Yeah, and explaining what's currently happening in the world today, hopefully.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's just another idea that I've just got. I think that's a great idea.
And I'm even Yeah, thinking about kind of, if you were thinking about kind of, once you start thinking about who your audience is, and is it, I mean, how far are you guys from like Christ Church?
Yeah, there's a different.
I mean,
It's only a few hours.
I know that it's in New Zealand. I mean, I know
Yeah,
it's in New Zealand, but I'm just wondering like if that, when
2.5, 3 hours.
It's an impact because we're very close.
When I didn't know if that kind of event might have been something that, in terms of like and just like having some local concern or more kind of regional concern about.
Yeah, there was.
Japan. I mean,
No, that's
Texas.
right. Yes. And it's certainly more so because we have a lot of sister schools, a lot of Australian schools have sister schools in Japan.
Oh, okay.
So, that certainly was significant. And certainly the girls were very interested in what was happening at that point. So.
And so by connecting something like what you're doing, which is the newsletter item, with real events that have happened, you're generating an empathy, aren't you? A real, something right here.
Yes, and that's current, as happened.
Yeah.
And it's relevant for now, well, more so relevant 6 months ago.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there'll be another earthquakes.
Yeah, they're kind of in a bad spot.
Right. I think another kind of way to approach kind of the authenticity piece is to think about kind of professionals who deal with that information, sort of what are their venues for articulating their work, whether it's kind of public, like whether they're kind of how they how they publish their work, or kind of what kinds of things they produce in response to their work. So I think that a newsletter is very authentic, and I think but I think there might be other things that if I'm somebody like a geologist studying kind of then what am I producing, like a warning? Am I making predictions? Am I doing like a warning guide? Am I just kind of what other things might people do with that?
Emergency safety procedures for when this happens.
So it's been a really successful afternoon. We've been working on a whole range of different projects. I just ducked off to the curriculum mapping session, which was useful, and we've all been working on sort of slightly different things, and we've all submitted our entry documents to the Echo page, and we're going to get some PBL experts tonight to have a look at it, and they'll get back to us, and we'll have some good feedback tomorrow to work with as we continue to refine our PBL projects this week.